This is going to be a difficult episode for many people to listen to or to watch if you're watching it on YouTube. Purely because I know that many people out there still struggle with this one thing, and it is most likely one of the things that is stopping you from moving forward when it comes to creating a successful fat loss expedition for yourself. So the question I ask you is a victim mentality holding you back from fat loss? Now, remember, I did say that this is going to be a difficult episode to listen to or to watch or to even agree with if you do struggle with the victim mentality. We're going to have two sets of people. Those who are currently seeing success on the health and fat loss expedition, those who have successfully lost weight, or group two would be those that haven't had success. On that note, welcome to this episode of the Mandy Meyer podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where we chat all about your health and fat loss and how you can be successful in achieving your health and fat loss goals. This is also the podcast where I chat about the difficult things that maybe you don't want to hear, but the things that are so important for you to hear. Before we get into this episode, remember I am launching a 4-week Fork and Fitness challenge, which is going to help you create healthy habits over 4 weeks and kickstart your health and fat loss expedition. It starts on the 4th of August, but you have to register your interest using the link below because there are going to be limited spaces. Those on the mailing list, those who have registered the interest, will know first as to which date I open the sign up for the challenge. Now, as I was saying, there's going to be two types of people. Those who have started their health and fat loss expedition, maybe they've seen success, maybe they have been successful. Those group of people will be the ones that agree with what I say within this episode of the podcast, purely because they have been through it. They have experienced that. And here's the important thing. They have faced that victim mentality and overcome it. And in doing so, they have been successful. Then the second group of people might be the people that are still dealing with that victim mentality. And as I mentioned, that victim mentality could be the very thing that is holding you back from starting your health and fat loss expedition. And this group of people will probably disagree with everything that I say in this episode of the podcast. Well, purely because that is how that mentality works. Now, I am by no means trying to make anyone feel bad at all. I too struggled with the victim mentality during my several failed attempts at fat loss, where I would always blame everyone else and everything else except for actually looking at myself. I would blame work. I would blame the long hours at work. I would blame the fact that I didn't have support. I would use phrases like, it's easier for everyone else, but it's not easy for me because of X, Y, or Z. But I'm going to tell you now, the moment I started taking responsibility for my own actions, the moment I started practicing a growth mindset and saying, okay, there is X, Y, and Z that could potentially make it harder for me, but how can I work through that without using it as a reason as to why I can't do something? Now, again, I want to reiterate, I am not saying any of this to make you feel bad. I mean, that's if you're still listening up until this point. I'm purely saying this so that you can do some self-reflection and you can figure out where you are currently at with your mindset. And maybe you can sit down and write down a couple of things that is potentially holding you back, and then take it a step further as to how you can navigate those things. And also, one thing I want you to understand very carefully is I'm not saying fat loss is easy. I'm not saying that fat loss is easy for everyone and that no one has struggles. Of course there are struggles, and of course some people might find it a little more challenging than other people. And your struggles are real and they are valid, but I don't want you to let those struggles be the thing that stops you from starting, because you have created an identity out of that struggle which is stopping you from starting. This thing called health and fat loss is not easy. There are struggles, there are challenges, and every single one of you are different. You are individual. My struggles and challenges might not be the same as your struggles and challenges. And yours might not be the same as Sally's from the printer. And yes, struggles and challenges do make it more difficult. I totally get that. I understand that. But at what point do you draw the line and stop letting those struggles be the thing that stops you from starting, and where you actually start telling yourself and showing yourself and convincing yourself that you are indeed stronger than your struggles? Now, to give you some examples of that victim mentality that I'm speaking of, it could be something like, my metabolism is broken, so I can't do this. Or healthy food and gym memberships are too expensive, so there's no way for me to lose fat. It could also be something where you tell yourself, well, I always fail, so what is the point of even trying again? Or it's not fair that I have to work so hard, but everyone else has it so easy. Maybe those are silly examples, but I'm sure you get the point that I'm trying to make. People might find one struggle and turn that struggle into the reason as to why they can't lose fat. And I'm going to give you two more examples, which are real life examples. Well, maybe not real life examples, but it's messages and comments that I got on one of the social media platforms. And again, before I go into this, I want you to know that the struggle is real, and I'm not taking your struggle away from you. Because, like I said, there are things, a lot of things that make fat loss and creating a healthier lifestyle a lot more challenging sometimes than it has to be. I had a lady fighting with me in my DMs. Yes, it happens quite often, where she told me it was easy for me to lose fat because I've lost 40 kilograms, and that it's impossible for her to lose fat because she has endometriosis. And I went on to respond to say, to lose fat, you need to create a calorie deficit. Yes, there's going to be influencing factors, and yes, it might be more difficult when you are facing challenges such as endometriosis, but it's not impossible. Long story short, she said I would never know and never understand, and it is impossible, and she can't do it purely because she has endometriosis, but I will never understand. And I just responded back saying, I do understand, because I too have stage 4 deep infiltrating endometriosis. Needless to say, I did not hear back from her. I've then had other people say to me it was easy for me to lose 40 kilograms because I had a routine and I work from home and I work for myself and I don't travel for a living. And usually I entertain the conversation for a little bit and then I go on to deliver the facts, which is I lost 40 kilograms whilst I was working in the travel industry. I was traveling a lot for work. I was hardly at home. My routine was absolutely shit. There was 1 year where I was at home in Cape Town for about 3 months of the year and not a consecutive 3 months. Now, this is not me thinking that the sun shines out of my arse. This is me trying to prove with facts from my real life experience that whilst you do face struggles and a lot of challenges, there are still ways to navigate this thing called health and fat loss. You just have to want to find a way to navigate those struggles and those challenges. The issue with victim mentality or having a mentality like that is it can make you feel safe because you never need to take responsibility for inaction because there's always something else to blame. Things like a broken metabolism, things like work, things like stress, things like you don't have support or anyone to motivate you. And yes, whilst those things make it more challenging, they still don't make it impossible. And as I mentioned, I know that everything I've said within this episode of the podcast is probably going to hit a few nerves. But you know what? That's a good thing, because if it hits a nerve and because if you've listened up until this point, that means that you want to change. That means that there is already shift in that mindset. And that is a bloody good thing. That is a start. That's where I want you to start. Start owning your actions. Start taking responsibility. Start looking for what you can control instead of just saying, I can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. That's only 3 letters of the alphabet. And as I mentioned right at the start of this episode, there will be many of you nodding your head saying, I too was there. I too had that victim mentality, or I too had that fixed mindset, or I too let that struggle become my identity. Because I can assure you now that most of us have let our struggles become our identity, or we have had that victim mentality. I know that I can be the first one to put my hand up and say that all of this would have applied to me before my successful attempt at fat loss. Now remember, this is not me writing off all your struggles and saying they are invalid. That is absolutely not what I am doing. But I want you to realize that you are stronger than your struggles. And you can't keep using those struggles as a reason as to why you can't do something. Now, I also get it that there are real struggles that do see you not being able to do something. I get it, but that's not what this episode is about. Now, I'm not going to go to my dad who has the struggle of not being able to walk because he was paralyzed from the waist down after major surgery and spinal TB. I'm not going to say to him, hey, your struggle is you can't walk, but you need to push through that and you have to start walking now. He will look at me or give me a moerse snot clap. He won't though. He won't. It's a joke. Like, that is legitimately a valid struggle and challenge. So you understand where I say you need to be able to identify whether your struggles, I'm not going to say are real or not, because they're there and they are your struggles. But you need to be able to identify if you are using those struggles as a reason or an excuse not to execute actions that are going to help you achieve your health and fat loss goals. As I mentioned, I know this episode wouldn't have been easy to listen to, but if you have made it this far, that's already a massive win. But as you know, when you listen to the episodes on this podcast, you do so at your own risk, because I don't sugarcoat shit. Because I tell you what you need to hear so that you can actually start progressing, as opposed to telling you what you want to hear just for my engagement purposes. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who really talks from experience, Mandy.